Asha and welcome to my YouTube channel. I am a beauty business coach and my YouTube channel, BBB Beauty Business Builder, is here to help you within the beauty, hair and aesthetic industry to be seen. Gone are the days when we can rely on time for exchange services. I teach and coach entrepreneurs like you to leverage their skills, find new alternative ways to generate a revenue, and to become unstoppable and a celebrity in your field. So if you want to know more, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, click the bell, subscribe now, and check out my other videos. And I look forward to helping you and your beauty business. Bye for now. Guys, this is Essjay here and welcome to another podcast. Now we have got hair issues actually, but we have got a live interview today. Now this guy, I have worked with this guy over this last probably 9 months now. But with me and Russ, we probably connected about a couple of years ago. And Russ Turner is responsible for branding, basically branding. He's branded some huge companies out there. He develops, refines brands that can sustain the test of time, that are also relevant as well. Now, we're not just talking branding for products, we're talking branding for businesses as well. So a lot of you guys that follow me are in the beauty industry, the hair industry, and branding is something that we don't tend to look at. We tend to pick a logo, pick our name, and then run with that. So obviously, happy to welcome Russ today, and I'm going to let him introduce himself, and he can sell himself better than I can sell him. So, hi, Russ, how are you?
I'm really good, thanks. Yeah, so as Essjay said, I've been working with Essjay, and I think it was definitely a couple of years back, but more recently on your recent project, and I don't know how much people know about this yet. So
yeah, we'll touch base on that towards the end.
But yeah, branding in general is one of those things. Yeah, I've been working in branding and design for more than 30 years. Essjay's hair is made to be that way. Mine is actually just age.
This is Thursday night.
But yeah, so and things in branding and design have changed quite a bit over that last 30 years. I started off working for clients in the pharmaceutical medical industry. I worked within Oxford University Press, so there was a lot of publishing going on at the time because I lived in Oxford. The way in which branding used to be done, and there was nothing wrong with it because we didn't have access to as many tools as we have now, so it wasn't as quick. It used to be someone would have an amazing idea. And they'd think sort of, I've got this amazing idea purely in their own mind, without any research. And they would then actually say, okay, I just need a logo. And someone would, usually an uncle's daughter or something, they might bosh out a logo. And it's like, yeah, what do you think? And it's, and it just kind of would evolve from there. And, bigger companies would do pretty much the same, but in a slightly more sophisticated way. So they would actually have a large studio, lots of designers, lots of creators working on a project. You'd have an account manager who wouldn't necessarily have had the experience of, strategic planning or anything like that. They may have actually been trained as could have been a German philosophical kind of degree holder, but they just couldn't find anything. So they ended up becoming an account manager. It would take a brief, come back to the studio, throw it into the studio. Oh yeah, we need some logo ideas by Thursday kind of thing. So it'd have all these people just working lots of different ideas. They'd have a name, no real kind of research. Yeah. So what would happen is you'd actually end up with projects where the creatives would do their thing. The creative director would actually oversee it and in his own mind have, value proposition or creative proposition for the client. And it tended to be post-rationalized. So you'd have the ideas or what people thought that should be done, not necessarily enough research. And the two would kind of end up being crowbarred together. And it slowly, I mean, it got to a point where my peers and a guy called Brian Taylor, who I looked up to and worked with, he was one of the first people I ever heard say, there's got to be a better way of doing this, a more joined up way of thinking.
A more planned way, a more...
Yeah, absolutely.
Preparation.
And over time, different agencies and different places, because working in publishing, it was fine. If you think about a book jacket design, we would actually get given a script. So you could read the book and you actually knew what it was all about. And so it was very easy to say, okay, I know this cover needs to look similar to this or what it's all about. With a brand or a product or a service, it's actually far more difficult because they're always changing. They're not solidified in print. Businesses develop, businesses grow, they change. And the identity needs to actually embody not necessarily what they're, who they are or what they're selling, because that may change, but it needs to represent all of their values and, all of the philosophical stuff and ethics and all of that. And so, as I say, Brian, who I was working with at the time, said there's got to be a better way a proper way of doing this and understanding it. And so, and then moving on from there, it was just trying to think of different ways of doing that and being more engaging. And I guess, like lots of people, after several years working within agency side, again, no rhyme or reason one day, but just you just sat there and you're thinking, what, I could do this better. This company driving me absolutely mental. A bit of a love-hate relationship with them, but just decided it's just one day, right? Yeah, just handed him a notice and just thought, what, I'm gonna set up on my own. And from that moment, just went out thinking, right now, because I had the pressure to do so, I need to actually not just talk the talk, but walk the walk, and actually come up with some ways of actually trying to do this branding stuff differently to the way in which it's been done before. And so it's, and in the past, so I suppose 15 years ago would have probably been looking at different tools that were already out there. So in Oxford, Myers-Briggs was a well-known thing back in the day, because in and around Oxford, you had companies like Nielsen. You had one of Myers-Briggs offices and everything. So lots of companies were using them for recruitment. And when I say recruitment, I mean onboarding new customers for big companies with Nielsen, recruitment for profiling with things like Myers-Briggs. And so the idea was those tools are actually finding out about people, and they're actually doing some of the groundwork that, as a brand agency should really be doing, because we need to know who we're talking to.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, especially in the industry, the people that are going to be watching this and listening. Everybody's individual. Everybody's completely individual. You've got so many beauty salons, so many hair salons, but everyone's got certain strengths, certain weaknesses, and a certain kind of avatar and niche. So it's all about how you can actually get that brand or that logo or the colours or the design or the ethos behind it. It's how you can actually represent that. So then you are then hitting the right target. And I think would you say it's fair that that's what a lot of people don't even think about? They just pick a name.
Oh, no. And again,
and move on.
Yeah. And I think that's very, very often most clients will actually pick something that is right for them. And you want your identity to truly represent who you are. But your tastes and the way what you like might not necessarily be accurate for your target audience. So that was what I was aiming to do, having left, I suppose, the comfort of, a salaried job and actually going it alone. Had a few people that said, we'll call you up for a bit of work and everything. And I mean, I'm going to skip through sort of like the history of that, but we ended up joining up with, because we were still in our 20s at the time, we signed up for what was then called the Princess Youth Business Trust. We thought, okay, if we didn't get a loan from the bank because we wanted some equipment and everything, we'll try as many different places as we could. including family, but we ended up getting accepted into the Prince's Youth Business Trust. And current feelings about royals aside, at the time, it was incredible. We got introduced to Lloyds Bank, sales directors, research and development companies, marketing managers, McVitie's, Lloyds Bank, Royal Mail, Nissan. All of these people were there as mentors for, at the time, young entrepreneurial business minds. And so, as you say, you managed to actually work on some lovely projects for these companies. But again, it didn't negate the fact that you had to be able to do what you said you wanted to do. And it was quite telling that some of these big companies had never been through that process. And here was me and, my couple of partners actually saying stuff that they wanted to hear that really big companies should hear. And so some of the big companies were doing it almost intuitively. So they didn't know what they were doing. They were, I think if you think about competencies, some of those big companies that, like Saatchi's, they had some amazing copywriters, and produced some of the best adverts that you could probably no longer show anymore, because it was back in the 70s, you can get away with everything. But they were, I think they were unconsciously competent at what they did. And if they actually said sort of like, if they were asked, what is it? How do you do this? They wouldn't have been able to say what it was, because it's kind of, well, I don't know, just do it. And so the idea was to not necessarily come up with a formula, but to actually make it clear, in terms of, okay, there are different stages. But first, to do that, we had to kind of get round to this idea and understanding that there are two distinct parts to any brand. And I know, put this in the simple kind of lockdown workshop kind of form. And I liken it either to a tree or to an iceberg. The idea that the bit that you see at the top, that is your brand identity. Yeah. The bit beneath the surface is your brand image. They're kind of intrinsically linked, but it's all of the stuff beneath the surface that people very often don't see that makes the brand. It's the ethics and how you deal with people, your communication strategy. It's the way you do your accounts. It's the way you actually work with other members of your team, if you have staff or employees. It's how you actually go about your marcoms. There are so many different parts of that that people don't necessarily see or get involved in, but they have to be congruent with what you want to tell people. And I've heard business coaches say, do you know what? Your brand isn't your logo. And I would actually say to any of those, it's kind of like, do you know what? Don't listen to that bollocks. Because if you look at any incredible brand, and when I say brand, those that actually have amazing products, great customer service, but also look amazing. Right. If you actually, you associate, and there's a shortcut to all of those feelings, and it comes through the logo. And I always say the logo is a shortcut to an emotional response. You see it, it's like,
and then it gives everything else. Yes,
absolutely. And I did a presentation a few years back where, to try and get this point across, I had lots of T-shirts on under a suit, so I started to take my clothes off, and people think, what the hell's going on? And the idea was that, okay, I had one T-shirt. It might have been a McDonald's logo. And I asked everyone, when you see someone wearing a McDonald's logo, what do you think? Apple logo, Gucci, different identities. Yeah. And the last T-shirt, which I didn't actually put on, but I held up, because there are a few people thinking, not sure about that. That last one I held up was a T-shirt with a swastika on. And the idea is kind of like, what do you know? What do you associate with this? And how does it make you feel? Because I know for a fact that in Germany, it's still a banned icon. Yeah. You can't publish it anywhere, or you're not meant to, unless it's in a kind of educational format. Yeah. And so the idea was that your identity should become an emotional shortcut to what you want people to feel. And if if you haven't done that groundwork to try and figure out what is that, then it just becomes an identity, and it takes longer to build that, because if you don't know it, you can't tell people, and you might keep changing that. And of course, with branding, as with anything, there's repetition, and keep telling people, keep showing people what it is that you actually are all about, what you stand for. And so if that's done at the beginning, it's a little bit like within sports, it's a little bit like you've got some people call it a playbook. You've got something to refer to. It's not necessarily a brand Bible, but even if it is, it should have an indication, or at least a fully solidified idea of what your values are, and those beliefs. Because when you talk about the ideal client, if you don't know who they are, so for example, you don't know what they drive, you don't know what they eat, you don't know how many children they are, a simple way of thinking is that they have shared values with you. And then you're into another area, which is about of marketing, which is mind share marketing, where it doesn't necessarily matter what it is that you are looking like. So long as you actually have the shared values, then you can take someone on that journey and present yourself and your identity, your products, your wares, if it's like a store. And then you can actually communicate all of your, along with your values, your brand story. And all of those things make up this compelling, not necessarily immediate reason to buy, but what you'll end up doing is building connection. And if you're building connection, then what you're building towards is relationship building. And it's that kind of relationship building that you have with brands, where you implicitly trust a brand because they've actually provided something, they've delivered a service or a product that you can trust, because those results actually demonstrate that they're able to do what they do, which is the whole credibility piece. And then once you actually have that and you're able to repeat that, you actually have this gateway, if you like, into brand loyalty. And the lovely thing about that is that that is a really tough thing to break down. And the reason for that, and I know you know, Essjay, about a little bit of some of the psychology that goes on with people, is you get that confirmation bias. So relationship building, it circles back to this idea of you have your idea for a brand, your products and your services. You've done the legwork to try and figure out who it is you're talking to. So not only talking their language, and to the right people, but also understanding their buying strategies. So for example, I might know that my, say, ideal customer is 30 to 40-year-old mums. They could be empty nesters, so they don't have any children. They may be living with a partner, or married, but they're living in their first house still. No plans at the moment to have children. And their ideal customer language may be one that is, they might like top level sort of ideas. They're not interested in the detail. Even so, I still need to know what their buying strategy is, or decision making strategy is. So for example, and we all have them, if you walk into a shop. So for me, my buying strategy, which over the years I've actually recognized because it winds Shaz up, is I walk into a shop, I see something. So my strategy is, do I like how it looks? How much is it? Because I already know it's available. How many have they got? Do you have my size? Or if it's clothing, for example, or will it fit if it's furniture? I'll take one. And for me, it is the same. And I would suggest that everyone has a very similar buying strategy, especially if it's something that has a slightly higher price tag. If it's something that's inexpensive and everyday commodity, not necessarily the same strategy. But someone might walk into a shop and their first step, if you like, in that program might be, how much is it? And then they might actually think, it's not quite the right color. So it's figuring out, if you know the different strategies for your clients. And the reason that's important is because if, let's say, you're creating, it might be a social media post or an advert, if your ideal customer's buying strategy is not price led, then it makes little sense to have a headline that is leading with, discounts now available, because price isn't irrelevant, is kind of not important to them.
It's all the audience.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to test it. Sometimes you have to, and I know with email marketing, you can do A/B testing, ABC testing. You can do lots of different things to see, what works. You can have automated email marketing. I know we spoke briefly about Shopify, Essjay, and I know, again, I helped Shaz set up, I think it was Campaign Monitor, their setup for Shopify. And each of the, and you can set up different strategies for that, for their email marketing. So, and these are all things that back before email and everything, that day when I jumped ship and decided to actually do, what I wanted to do in terms of branding, those were all the kind of things that I was thinking, wouldn't it be amazing if we actually could do all of this? And of course, they're all available now. And I think that, and there are so many of them, it can actually get quite confusing as to what you should be doing. But it comes down to this idea that your identity is one thing, and what you stand for and represent is a slightly different thing, but they are intrinsically linked. And very often, and another little exercise worth doing is to actually, and again, everyone can try this, is think of a brand that you love, that you've made a reasonably expensive purchase from, that you would possibly consider that you have some level of brand loyalty towards. But when you think of that brand, it has to be a brand that, if you actually said, if I said, right, pick a brand that represents you, what would it be? So for example, over the past, I've chosen different things that represent myself, not necessarily because they're products I would endorse, but things like, in the past, I've chosen things like McDonald's to represent me, because as a brand, it says what it is going to give you. It's fast food. It's never really pretended to be anything else. It has diversified. It always tries to stay relevant. It knows exactly who its target audience is, and it speaks their language. So if you were to think of a brand that represents yourself, what would it be? And then draw that logo down, turn over that sheet of paper or next to the logo, write down what it represents. It's in terms of all of those attributes that you can think of. And what I would say is that you look at that logo and think, okay, that stands for that, and I can see how and why, and those things, those attributes, I can relate to that. Most people, if they look at their own brand and their identity, if they've not worked on it, they could look at their own brand and identity and think, well, what do other people know about that? And if they can't write down in the same way, or it's not engaging enough for them to actually consider what it even stands for, then you have some work to do. And it might be that the logo or the identity is spot on, and it might line up really lovely with all of your values, but until you dig beneath the surface to find out what they are, you're never going to know. And again, and if you write down those simple values, what you want your identity to stand for, then that's a really good starting point to think, okay, this is what I need to be communicating. How do I do that? What tools do I use? What colors do I use? And in terms of brand development, that's kind of what we're there to try and help people to do. And it's one of those things that I always say it should be fun. It should be exciting.
I think this was what was really interesting with some of you that are watching this may know what I am doing as well as the coaching side, but I've actually worked with Russ to manufacture my own makeup range. And before I reached out to you and I started thinking about what I wanted and everything else, it's completely different to what I've got now, completely different. But when I look at it's a long process. It took us a good few months to establish the logo. And when I connected with you, I just thought, it's just about the logo. I just want a nice logo, a nice name. That's it. But you took me on such a amazing journey on everything, all the from the, like you said, from the iceberg, the emotional part of it, the background, the building it, and then before you know it, this logo and this concept and everything else, just everything just pulled together. And it's something that I think a lot of people, when it comes to branding, would probably think it's not worth the money, because they can just design their own logo on blooming caviar, is it caviar or whatever? They could just design their own logo or just get a buddy to do it or whatever. But when I look at what you have created by us working together throughout the whole process, it is like, it's phenomenal. Absolutely, it says everything. Just by looking at it, it says everything that I need to say. It's hitting the target audience massively, and it's completely uniformed. And I didn't think a brand could do it that well. Obviously, we see these other big brands out there, like you're saying, you know, McDonald's and the people that you've worked with, Hotel Chocolat, all of them, you see them and you're like, how did they do it? And it's all that background stuff that nobody puts in the time and money to do.
Yeah, and I think that most people, when you start marketing your business, you will have and there are lots of different, you will hear lots of people talking about sales funnels, kind of marketing strategies, onboarding strategies and different things. And, you know, they'll take you through different steps, different shapes, different flow diagrams, going from, you know, awareness through to connection, through to trial, adoption, then back into the funnel, and all sorts of different things. But the way I like to think about it is, like I said, until you actually know what it is you really stand for, and I don't swear much, but the expression is you're pissing in the wind if you don't really know what it is you actually really stand for, because you don't want to try and appeal to everybody, just that narrow band of people that you relate to, that buy from you, that get your products and services. Mm-hmm. And there are some people who actually say, sort of like in far stronger terms, you know, it's a way, you know, that it's a waste of time, but it's actually, you know, focus your energy on those people that you know you can build those relationships with, and that when you have those customers, you know, and we've all had those friends that, you know, when we were younger, they were your best mates, and you don't see them forever, and then when you see them again, you pick up, it's almost as if it was just the other day when you've spoken with them. And that kind of connection is what you're really looking for with a brand. Someone might not have bought from you, it might be weeks, months, could be a year, but you know that when they actually reconnect with you, you want to be able to actually be that place that they can rely upon to actually say, yeah, we have what you want. We have the same, in the case of some of your products, Essjay, it could be the same colors. It could be the best sellers. Yes, you can still get those. Yes, we still offer this. Yes, we do the same. And it's that, and it is that sense of kind of, do you know what? Yeah, you want them to feel when they see your brand again, that it's kind of, yeah, it's great to see you. It's like seeing an old friend. And you know, and I've had that experience with lots of products I love, especially when I've been traveling in countries where I have no knowledge of the language. Like China was the last one. Got to a point where I was so desperate just for any trashy food, so long as I actually knew it wasn't a bit of seaweed, or no, actually it was jellyfish that gave me the most horrendous gut problems. I just wanted something that
recognize, just to feel that you was at home.
Well, yeah, and it was, you know, it obviously it didn't happen, but I walked around the corner. It was almost like I heard, you know, the Simpsons Springfield, da, da, da. It was, you know, and there was a McDonald's sign, and I thought, do you know what? And I know, you know, people will slate it, you know, because it's faster. But in the back of my mind, I was doing that confirmation bias, actually said, do you know what, it's okay to have once in a while. I'm not going to have it every day, you know, it won't hurt me, you know, just every so often. I might even get a Big Mac.
Yeah, but everything you're kind of saying in relation with the brand, it's all about emotion. I think this is what a lot of people you buy the emotion from that service or that product.
Yeah.
You don't buy the product. So you're buying the emotion, you're buying the person, you're buying the what they stand for. And a lot of people just think, I'm paying for my nails to be done. I can go anywhere for my nails to be done, but I go to who I go to because I like her. I like her, the way she's a person. I like what she stands for. I like my time with her. So I'm buying the emotion of me feeling good when I leave. I've had a nice time with her and I'm going to feel good. I'm not just buying a red nail polish. And I think that's what a lot of people forget in the beauty industry, because it is a service-based industry. People forget that you are actually buying, you are selling yourself.
And it's an experience.
Brand.
Yeah, and those kind of experiences, and the way I think about it in pretty much everything, as even the most emotionless person, I often say, you buy on emotion and you rationalize with logic, and it is that simple. You know, there are a few occasions, there are occasions when, for example, you need to get the car fixed or you need to get some new tires. But in the back of your mind, even when that guy at the garage says, okay, yeah, we've got the Pirellis, which cost 400 quid. We've got the Michelin, yeah, you can get those for maybe 200. Or we've got the budget ones that are 40 quid. There's part of you thinking, oh, do you know what, I'm going to go for the 40 quid. But ultimately, there's another part of you thinking, oh, do you know what, is it safe? Are they going to be as reliable? And that is an emotional response, because you're actually thinking not just on cost, you're actually thinking about something more, and how that is going to have a knock-on effect. And these thoughts that you have, sometimes they're really quick, but once you've had that emotional thought, then you are just rationalizing, confirmation bias all the time. I wear a watch which it's a Polar. Does everything I want it to do, but essentially it tells the time, but it gives my heartbeat, it gives sort of like links up to different apps and all sorts of things. I don't use all of them, but I've pretty much convinced myself that I need all of them. And for years I had a dive watch. I qualified to dive when I was back in my 30s. I've been diving for the best part of 15 years. But I wore a dive watch for so long, thinking, it goes to 200 meters, and it's kind of like, it's, why? I do,
with you, take it to the quarry pool you was on about.
If I lost my watch and it sunk to the bottom of the ocean, it would still work. So safe in the knowledge there.
Someone would benefit from it down there.
Yeah, but it is this. And I think that, and what I say with marketing and brand and emotional brandology and stuff like that is that if things aren't going right, and if you've actually formulated a strategy or a plan for how you're going to go to market with your brand, develop your brand, if things aren't going right, the knee-jerk reaction for big companies and small is always to actually, it is to respond emotionally, and sometimes irrationally. And that's when your emotions are, I would say, they're not your friend, and you make decisions based on emotion. In those instances, what I would say is, right, you've spent a long time putting that plan together, consult your plan and not your emotions, because at times of high stress, your emotions will actually do what it does to try and keep you safe. And if you're losing money, your emotions will tell you, I need to stop everything that's costing me money to actually ring fence what I've actually got. The reality is very often you actually consult your plan, something isn't working, you modify that plan, and then you actually move forward with that modified plan. Because if you don't do that, all that effort that went into building that strategy, building that plan, you might as well just throw it out and then go somewhere like Fiverr and just get a cheap logo and go back to the idea of just pissing in the wind.
Yeah.
Because the lovely thing about having a strategy and plan is you can monitor it. You can actually 5 years down the line say, yeah, we did this, it didn't work. It might work now because of time.
Though as well, I think a lot of people think, once I've got my brand, once I've got my logo, once I've got, that's it then. I then have to stay with that. But there's brands out there that have tweaked things as they've gone on, as they've grown, as they've developed. They've possibly niche down even more. You know, there's some, I think Samsung's probably one of them that springs to mind. They was kind of did all kind of you know, computer stuff, and now they've almost niched into more just like the mobile technology, and they don't do as much as that anymore. So I think a lot of people think, oh no, once I've got my brand, that's it. So let's just pick an easy, safe, basic logo, just dead basic, because then I'll be able to tap that for 20, 30 years on, because I can, heaven forbid I change it, because people are then gonna not recognize it. But you can change, can't you? You can redevelop.
Yeah, absolutely. You can modify. You don't have to stick with. Sorry, I do apologise.
Don't worry. The joy's alive. Love it.
I think someone's just come in actually. But yeah, I think the key is to really have things in place that you can measure. So. And again, it's like having SMART goals that you know within all of those, you know, you actually have things in place that you can actually measure. And there are loads of different marketing sort of like SOSTAX, SWOT analysis, different things. You don't have to engage with all of those. You can come up with your own plans if you like, but because I always think that a strategy is just a fancy word for a plan. Make a plan. And you can build upon that. It could be a financial plan. It could be a marketing plan. It could be a plan for how you're actually going to develop your logo. It could be, everything. Put together a simple plan. You know, if you're actually developing your website, okay, I'm going to do a page a day. It might only be, or a page a week if you haven't got the time. But actually, the idea of actually moving towards what your end goal should be. If you're doing loads of things that are taking you away from that, then, you know, stop doing them. And if you haven't got a goal, and Essjay can help you with this, look at how you can actually formulate, okay, real goals against those that other people say you should have, and that are drawing you away from your true meaning and purpose. And that sounds quite lofty, but
it's true.
But it is true. And I think that, you know, going back in time again, when I was younger, I could have been a sports person, could have gone into music, could have gone into art and design. And I speak about this a lot because for me, credibility is about having a talent, or in some cases, genius, and being able to actually do what you say you can do. Secondly, I think it's having a passion for it. So, you know, it really does need to fire you in the belly and want you to get you out of bed.
Yeah, you enjoy doing it.
Yeah, and I think thirdly, you need to have a level of integrity. Now, as I say, in sport, I was, or people around me I find it quite humbling to set myself. But people around me said I was really talented, and I could have actually gone all the way. Let's say, I had the integrity. I never cheated, but I didn't have the passion for it. I got to an age where my coach said, you know what, if you really don't want to be doing this, don't do it for your dad, don't do it for anyone, don't do it for anyone else. And I didn't, and I just kind of like said, you know what, I love playing sport, but I don't want to do it as a career. Same with music. Again, if I look back now, I look at the same things. You know, I had the passion for it, and integrity wise, you know, the integrity came out really when I actually realized, do you know what? I don't play the piano and sing well enough. I don't quite have that talent to be or to do that as a career. And I know other talentless people probably have.
Yeah.
And it was the same really but when it came to the art side of things and design, I had the talent and aptitude for it. I had the passion for it. It was what I wanted to do. And I, you know, in terms of actually integrity, you know, it was one of those things that I worked at. It was actually, do you know what? Yeah, I say I'm going to actually put together sort of like this design or painting. It might take long, it might be quick, but that is what I do. I actually get it done. And I think that within anything, you can sometimes just look at those three simple things. Employing staff, do they have a passion? Are they talented? Do they have integrity? If they don't hire them. If they have two of them, but not all three, don't hire them. Because if you're hiring a sales team, if they're passionate about it, if they've got the passion and they've got the talent, that's great. But if they haven't got any integrity, you don't want to be 5 years down the road and realize that they've actually, given backhanders to people just to get the work. So it's about making sure for yourself that your brand, that people can see that you have, as a brand, you have integrity, and that's the base of the iceberg. They can see that you can do what you provide what you say you're going to do, and that you're actually absolutely passionate about it. But if it's actually working, whether it's in coaching, whether it's in, whether it's actually in making a product, as you have, Essjay, if they can see you actually have a talent for that, then those are the things that you put into your brand story, your communication. And if it's real and if it's congruent with what you are saying, then people will see that. They'll see that it comes across.
I see this a lot in like beauty, hair salons. Obviously, a lot of people that watch these videos, that they try and be the master of all trades. So literally every single service that is available, skin, nails, lashes, brows, they'll do it all. And 50% of it, they hate it. They hate doing it. It's like, no, I'm a beauty salon, I have to do it. But then that is not being truthful to what, that's when you can then niche yourself down even more. I think, you know what? No, I'm a skin specialist. That's it. I'll get other people that are passionate in that field to do that. But I'm going to stay true to my brand, true to what I represent, and give my clients the best, because that to me is where my passion is, rather than spreading myself too thin by doing absolutely everything. Look in the diary every morning thinking, oh God, I've not got them treatments in today. And that's what people do in this industry. And I just think, like we said before, trying to appeal to the masses, trying to literally appeal to the masses, and then you will appeal to nobody. So it is all about niching it down, doing what you love, what you're passionate about, and then the brand, then that's the backbone of the brand.
Yeah, and you want to make that the core of it. And again, it's like you said, sort of, if you keep getting drawn in different directions because you see someone else is doing something, or someone else is doing something over there, and you keep getting pulled around, then you're not focusing on your own game, and you really are just being drawn. And then whether you would believe in that, because I often think, you hear lots of talk about things like the power of the universe, or subconscious and everything. It's almost like, if you don't know what you're actually doing, then all those people you're hoping to communicate with, they're going to be equally as confused. And you can't hope to have a single-minded, clear messaging strategy if every time someone else does something, you're thinking, oh yeah, well actually, I quite like that. Maybe I could do that. And I think that it's just about having that clear understanding of what it is you represent. And I think it's something that sounds so simple, and it's sometimes easy for people to say, do you know what, you have to do this, you have to do that. And we hear an awful lot in coaching, people talking about, do you know what, you have to make yourself uncomfortable before it gets good. But there is also another way of looking at that, is, do you know what, some people, they're already uncomfortable, maybe because they're not making enough money, their business is struggling. You don't want them to get even more uncomfortable. So it's actually helping them to actually experience what's more unfamiliar rather than uncomfortable. Because it may be that if someone's having a bad time with their business, the last thing they want anyone to say to them, whether it's a coach, me, or anyone else, is say, oh yeah, the good stuff lies beyond the discomfort. It's like, it's like,
I'm already uncomfortable, leave me alone. Yeah.
So it's about, and I think that, and a lot of some of the stuff we're talking about is about. It just sounds, to some people, they might just say, it all sounds a little bit woolly and a little bit kind of, and it can, because we're talking about emotions, and we're talking about trying to encourage those emotions without being manipulative, using more persuasion that is aligned with that person's way of thinking. And it's just about keeping that integrity so that when you get to that point of stopping before you've actually hooked somebody who really doesn't need what you're actually offering, but I'm going to sell it to them anyway, because that is when you get on the negative side of branding, where you get people walking away, and it could be from a clothes shop, could be away from a salon, where they end up with buyer's remorse. And it is that idea of it, and I get that still with brands that I love, but for me it's that kind of confirmation bias that I actually, that internal conversation saying, no, you haven't been ripped off. No, you know it's the right thing. It's those crazy conversations that do I need that 60-inch TV? Yeah, you love it. Actually, no, I don't have one, but
the devil.
I didn't. Yeah, didn't.
So, if there's anybody listening to this now that are kind of looking at their business, their brand, and they're like, you know what, this is relatable to me. My brand doesn't say naff all about what I do, who I am. Obviously, everyone that's watching this knows that, Russ works with many, many, many companies, and he can support you and help you out. But if you get any tips that somebody could kind of do themselves just to kind of discover the start of it, anything that you want to share, a couple of top tips, what if people are...
So the first one would be those three key elements. Really is sort of like, sit down, and again, it's really simple. Look at what you're talented or genius at. Look at the things that you're really passionate about, and look at the things that you have a high degree of congruence with, because that will give you the integrity. And also the idea that what is it that you're able to actually do that delivers results? Because one of the quickest ways to build trust with your clients is to actually deliver results. Now, that might not necessarily be delivering a final product or service. It could be in a consultation. It could be in the way you talk on the phone to people. But it's about delivering results in small amounts so that people can move on to the next part. And what you're doing by that is adding value in, because the hardest thing to recognize is that I could give something to one person, something to another. They will all take away different value from that. So the value that I'm hoping to give is going to be different to different people, and some may not see any value whatsoever. But along the way, what you're trying to do is always try and build in value to what you're actually offering, because that is in essence giving someone a result. It might be a small thing. You've answered a question, a nagging question. Then you've got, in terms of, there's another subject been looking at recently, which is brand loyalty, and kind of like how you build that, because that's considered by many to be something that you do once you already have like an established brand. But it's not, because anyone can start that small brand. And that is, think about the problem that it is you're actually solving for your potential target audience. Think about how quickly you can deliver that. Think about, can I repeat that time and time again? And if you can't, what do you need to do to make that possible? And then once you've actually got those three elements with the initial three, you're kind of on your way really to answering some, I suppose, quite probing things about sort of, because that's what it's all about. Because we all have these amazing ideas sometimes, and it's not until we actually start to grill ourselves that we either see them unraveling, or we can see them actually solidifying and think, actually, do you know what? Yeah, this is amazing. Because what this all builds up towards is this kind of perception of, because in business, we are under no circumstances, what we're actually providing is transactional. It's a business transaction. And what we want to do with our customers is build that relationship so that we go ahead with those transactions so trustingly that we don't read the T's and C's on the Apple phones. We don't read the conditions. When you sign up for an event, we sign the waiver that says if you actually die, you don't get anything, or because we trust.
Your firstborn over to me, yes.
Yeah, we love those, we love we love our brands. Like I said, we rationalize and we justify why, even when like Samsung phone, even when their batteries explode, even when VW cheat their emissions tests. There are lots, and so that brand loyalty, as I say, it's an amazingly strong thing, and it's really tough for brands to break down that want to get into that market space. But it isn't a difficult thing to build, and you don't build that share of the marketplace by putting others down, by being negative. You actually build up your own credibility, your own worth, and focus on yourself.
Passionate about what you love, and it's all about starting to niche it down. Know your avatar, know your audience, know your values,
absolutely,
in all that, and then from that, you can easily develop a brand that will then suit that. Without any of that, and this is what was really, really interesting with the program that you took me through. Because there was certain questions and it was a lengthy process at the beginning. I was like, oh, God, do we have to do all this? This is a bit. Well, yeah, I did, because I'm not Ross, come on. Yeah. So it's got all the, but all of that, what I give you, obviously with your experience and expertise, you managed to then create something which just was perfect, the whole concept. But I didn't know what you was doing with all that information. But obviously now, looking back, I'm like, this is why you take people through that journey.
And like I said, when you actually come out the other side, it's one of those things. One way or another, it will crystallize a thought that it's right, or it needs to change, but you end up in a place where you actually can make really useful decisions that actually drive you towards where you want to be. And as I say, I mean, I'm a big believer in things like the subconscious mind and stuff like that. So I'm not a fan of negative advertising. I love advertising that uses comedy. But I think that the other tip that I would actually suggest for anyone is try and think of, if you chunk it down, if you're thinking about sort of like your own brand, starting it, thinking of rebranding, thinking of taking on new machines, new tools, new equipment, and things like that. In each of those instances, try and get down to the core reason why you're doing it. And if you find that there's a negative, try to reframe it so that you're looking at it in a positive way. So, for example, if you're actually So for example, if I take the example of me leaving my job, okay, so why did I want to leave my job? Well, I didn't want to work for these people anymore. Why didn't you want to work for them? And ultimately, I keep asking those questions, and ultimately it got to the bottom line, which was I think that they're actually shit at what they do. And it's kind of, okay, so you got to the negative. Now, what is it you can actually change or reframe to actually say, I'm leaving my job, not because they're shit at what they do, but I'm leaving my job because I have a skill and a talent that I can offer my potential clients a better service that fulfills their needs, that has a positive effect on their business, which in turn will allow them to positively affect other people. Because if you don't get rid of that negative, everything will always be, oh, I'm doing this because, well, it didn't work this way, so I've got to do it that way. And you want to move away from that negative to get to kind of like, I'm doing this because this is absolutely amazing. I'm doing this because I can see it's working. I'm doing this because, and it is just about sort of like building on that. And once you get to that, because that's the bit that you want other people to get kind of infected with, that positivity, that, and the reality is we know that when we buy stuff, it doesn't necessarily immediately, ultimately change our lives and make us sort of like, sort of like amazing. But we're talking about emotions. And if it makes us feel good, then it allows us to actually believe that we can actually do that. And actually, but self-belief and expectations and the way we think about something will drive those positive feelings, which then will build those expectations and again refuel those beliefs. And actually, and it's the kind of thing that will allow us to actually, get into a ice cold lake and go swimming sort of like nearly a kilometre. Because I've got the watch that says I can.
The watch that can do it. Right, my goodness, we've been talking for an hour. I could actually talk to you all day. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to say bye to everyone and the broadcast. I'll chat with you in a second, Russ. All right.
Yeah, sure. No
so, Russ, thank you so much.
No worries.
So much. It's been an awesome interview. Anybody that wants to reach out to Russ, I've got a friend called Roche. Reach out to Russ. His info is in the description on this feed that you'll see on Facebook. But if you want to have his contact details, everyone can message me. Thank you everyone for watching and listening to the podcast, and I will see you on the next one. Bye for now, guys.
Awesome stuff. Take care.
Thank you.